So, sports car legend, Johnny O'Connell. If you could describe this lunch we just had in one word, what would it be?
Heartburn.
This poor place.
And now for Dinner with Racers, presented by
Continental Tire.
with your hosts, Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman.
Placeholder radio sound. I'm a driver. I'm very angry. This is the sound of a driver on the radio during a race.
What do you think I should order?
Welcome to Dinner with Racers, Season 2.
Season 2!
We made it.
You guys
I don't know
are so lucky
how or why we did this.
that
we
we
don't know.
care enough to do this.
So it is literally day 40
Yeah.
of a cross-country and back tour. We have now had 12,000 miles put on this poor vehicle. We drove across 29 states and had 28 guests this season.
That's right.
For free for you to listen and then compare it against season 1 and go, you know.
They didn't do as many season 1 jokes.
Okay, so first and foremost, I want to just say an honest, sincere, holy shit, thank you for listening to season 1.
Yeah.
Like, our download number doesn't add up. It's like, no, we actually made the joke consistently in season 1 of like, no one's going to hear this. And then you guys, by the 100,000s, made that totally wrong. And we really, really appreciate it. And that's why we have a season 2.
And 2 key partners we absolutely have to thank for really making this happen. The first one were the people who gave us this amazing vehicle. We have been driving the entire time and this is no bullshit, we've been driving in a Honda Odyssey, and this car has been the perfect car to put 12,000 miles across the country.
Think about that for a second. 12,000 miles is like a 1-year lease in miles.
And we did it in 40 days.
We did it in 40 days, which is awful, but also huge thank you to Honda for letting us do that, because that is a lot of miles they're going to put on this car. And they did it for us because they believe in what we're doing. I work for them. They're great people. Like, seriously, that is a massive expense that we couldn't be able to afford to do this. So thank you.
And this isn't just a marketing exercise. The car was incredibly comfortable. I mean, you'll hear about it in one of our episodes. We literally drove 19 hours straight at one point.
Yeah.
And the car, was a literal lifesaver in terms of the comfort and the convenience. But of course, all of this was sitting on, hey Ryan, what tire?
Continental Tire.
The Cross Contact LX20.
So again, this isn't possible without partners. Continental Tire believed in our idea from the get-go. We pitched them. They said, absolutely, we'd like to do that. When the numbers came in on season 1, they were blown away, as were we. And because of that, we were able to do this again, and we hope to do more of them in the future for you guys. So thank you, Continental Tire. All of you guys that are sending us the tweets and tagging Continental Tire saying you bought tires because of that literally justifies their partnership with us and continues down the road. So your business is actually being recorded when you guys send us those things.
So please keep doing it.
So keep doing that.
Keep telling Continental you're buying tires because of the podcast.
Even if it's not true. No. But no, okay. So once again, we couldn't have done any of this without you guys downloading it, without Continental and Honda coming on board. So without that, let's get into the good stuff.
Our first recording was in Atlanta. We were both in town for the Petit Le Mans weekend. Ryan was driving in the Continental Tire Series.
Finished second.
And I was there for a handful of teams. Disqualified. And so as soon as Petit Le Mans ended, literally that Monday, we were off and recording the show.
Yes.
So not too far from Road Atlanta is a city of Flowery Branch, Georgia,
Right.
where the one and only Johnny O'Connell lives. Sports car legend. He's won Le Mans several times. World Challenge champion for 4 years straight. Just sort of, if you're a GT or a sports car or just a road racing guy, there's no way you don't love Johnny O'Connell.
Told us a killer story about how he crashed the Nissan GT-U car back at Watkins Glen. There's a YouTube clip. We're going to try to link it on the website. We found out that he tried to murder Dario Franchitti.
He and I have a unique history together, which he didn't even know about, but he learns about that. We learn about his overall speed, and that he's been a second faster than every teammate he's ever had ever.
He's not afraid to pull any punches. He was happy to talk about anybody we asked. And I think you'll really enjoy his just candor and openness, as well as that southern fiery attitude that he's gained over his last 35 years of living in Atlanta.
So we ate at Moonie's Barbecue in Flowery Branch, Georgia.
I had the barbecue sandwich platter.
And I had the barbecue chicken sandwich.
Imagine that.
So let's get on with Johnny Continental Tire. Huh? No? Nobody? Anybody?
All right, we're going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Who's this guy? What's up, brother? How are you, buddy?
I've never even been to this place.
What's going on?
How
How are you?
Nice
Nice meeting you.
Look at you going all high tech and everything.
You. Oh, look at you being high
Thanks.
tech, Ryan.
Well, welcome to my podcast, Johnny.
I like it.
Yeah.
You've met Sean before, right?
I don't know. Have we met Sean? You look familiar.
He's put me on the spot. We'll talk about that. We've met a couple times. The most recent encounter, despite my bachelor's degree from UCLA, I spent a lovely hour holding up a hero card to block you from the sun.
Well, I'm feeling
you're
nothing but
very
love for you
welcome.
right there.
There you go.
know, when you're an
So-
orangutan like me, that's understandable.
You turned me down a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks, bud. So what's happening, man?
Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing. You fly out on Wednesday?
I'm on Wednesday. Are you on the
Early?
same flight? No, I'm late.
No, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
early to San Francisco.
Okay,
So,
yeah, we're going San Jose at like 6 p.m. or something.
All right, well,
Yeah.
that's decent.
Yeah,
That's decent.
get a full day in.
6, then you'll get in there about, 7?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. So let's get right into it. Have you ever broken anybody's arms at karate?
You know what? I haven't, but you know what? And you know what? When I was doing all the martial arts stuff, and I loved it. You know, we actually competed in a couple world championships, and I didn't get any golds. My ex-wife, though, total ninja
Yeah.
in a previous life. I mean, she's actually soon to be a master, and we get along great, and I'm very proud of her, you know, for that. But yeah, loved it. I mean, it is the closest thing to the intensity of racing that I found. But, you know, when I finally got to black belt, you know, I lasted there for about a year, and you start working with other guys that don't have control, and I started getting a lot of arm and wrist injuries.
Sure.
So, yeah. So I don't know how Lally does it. You know, sooner or later, somebody's going to rip his arm off.
I have a feeling very quickly it's going to come to an abrupt end when
Yeah.
you're a storm's going to roll through Atlanta and every bone in his body's going to freeze up. And he's going to be like, oh, that's the problem, because arthritis is going to be a big friend of his soon.
So have you ever killed anybody?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I mean, I've
Not that you've been accused
not
of.
that that I've been accused of it. It was funny because I didn't even, just to get back to Andy real quick. You know, great guy.
Just to deflect from me killing somebody.
Yeah, because that's never a good thing. Murder's not good.
Well, you haven't met Spencer.
Yeah, I've almost killed my kids a couple times. but I didn't even know Lally was training until I saw him at like Daytona. And it wasn't this year. It might have been the year before. And his ears were all nasty.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man, that guy.
He loves it. He loves it.
It's
Yeah,
good stuff. But
We were training one day, and he was doing like the 11 o'clock class, and I was doing the 12 o'clock or something. So I came in a little later, and I walk in, and everyone's like, have you seen it yet? And I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you got to go look at Andy's ear. And he literally had a grape-sized earlobe. Like, the bottom of the lobe had gotten punctured or something, and it swelled to the size of a grape. And he's like, oh, look. He was like so
That's the
happy
best part
about
is he's
it.
like proud of it.
He's so proud of
He's
it.
in his 40s, and he could,
Yeah, I believe he's 47.
he's how old are you?
I'm an honest 54.
Okay, so he's
Yeah,
like
he's
2
like-
years younger than you, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of cool stuff going on in your life. The fact that your son now, Kanan, is racing, and not only is he racing, he's racing crazy stuff. He's doing hill climb at Pikes Peak and what was that, Lancer or
Yeah, it was a
something?
Mitsubishi Evo, yeah.
Yeah, thing's got
And,
crazy wings all over it.
yeah,
and
big
looks-
horsepower,
Yeah,
big horsepower.
Yeah. And that place is still pretty crazy. You make a mistake there, that's a big,
It's a
big
was,
commitment.
It was funny because he and I visited about 3 months before he did his run up. And because I just wanted, to get a visual. I wanted to get some video for him because,
Right.
he works at the Bob Bondurant School. He's an
Right.
instructor out there. And before that, he worked for Chris Cook, who's a great guy, unbelievably talented driver
Yeah.
and instructor.
Is he the guy that does all the stock car races out
Correct.
at Sonoma?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Kanan got to work under him a lot. He's been funny because, since he was like 7 or 8 years old, we've been karting together.
Right.
off the radar stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this place called Lovable, which is where they have the charity
that's
event.
Dennis Spencer's old go-kart track.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, Dennis actually gave me a key to that place years ago.
Same. So let's talk about that place real quick, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like a hidden secret to North Georgia that people wouldn't know about. He has a shop nearby, which is the old Lovable Bra Factory. And so he takes this shop, which he has a big trench shoring company, I think is what he does.
Yeah.
And he's got this, we're talking about Dennis Spencer. He used to have a Mazda team back in the day, which is probably like, 20 minutes from here?
It's
down?
not even.
Yeah.
We are literally about 7 or 8 minutes from it right now.
So he takes this old Lovable Bra Factory. Half of it is trench shoring stuff. It's a big piece of property, big, massive, massive factory. And then he turns half of it into a race shop, half into a carbon shop. I say half, like literally like tenths of it. And then he literally takes half of it and builds an indoor go-kart track, which is like a 1:10 lap time inside. And he went and bulk ordered something like 25 dirt cart chassis. This is, 15, 16 years ago. And we'd go over there on Friday, and we'd have Friday night fights.
Yeah.
And it was the Archangel team versus the Dennis Spencer racing team. And the whole only rule was you had to bring gas.
Yeah.
And if you broke something, you had to fix it. You had
Yeah.
to pay for it because
Oh,
there was
yeah.
a shelf of parts. He just orders parts for go-karts. So we'd go over there, and we'd literally be, like, slamming each other into walls and, trying to go for the winner's timing and scoring. It was like a big deal. But that's something unique to kind of our little world here in North Georgia, because no one would know that this guy has this amazing internal go-kart track.
Oh, yeah. No, it's still there. If you drove by it, you would have no idea that there's this mega wicked cool, go-kart track in there. And he, he utilizes it for a lot of charity events, like at Petit Le Mans, but for a lot of the local, charities and the community around here. He does a lot of things for kids, and he's upgraded all the karts. The karts now are fast karts.
Like road racing chassis and
yeah.
everything.
Oh, yeah. They're the real deal. And I think they're all 6 horsepower. Promote Honda for you.
There you go.
They're Honda.
We appreciate your business.
Your company makes lawnmower engines. That's cool.
Hey,
I know.
we also make jets.
There we are.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Well, I didn't
yeah.
know that.
How's the Chevy Formula One program
That's
going?
right. It's killing. So, anyway, getting back on track. Yeah, no, that place is so much fun. And he has a deal every New Year's where he brings his employees from around the country, and he do a 10-hour enduro.
Yeah.
But what's kind of fun is like the last hour he'll do things like turn off the lights.
And it's pitch black.
Yeah.
Pitch black.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you hear, all you hear is like,
Bam.
Yeah.
because you can't
a
see
lot
where
of
you're
wrecking
going.
going on.
Yeah. Water
But-
down the track, which is literally like hitting ice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is where you got your ideas from for our party.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, but yeah,
good job, Ryan.
getting back to Canaan, he and I burned so much fuel there,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's generally developing, but it's really been in like the last year where finally things have clicked for him, and he's like, wow, now I know what you were talking about. Wow, now I know what you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, it was funny because it was actually Road America last year, and I'm waiting for him to go up the mountain. On the Tuesday, on his first run, he fell off. He slid it. He understeered into a ditch. The guys spent all this time fixing it. They got it done just in time so he could do the last part of the mountain. And but yeah, so like I am like, we're on the grid, and one of the guys on the team came up with his phone and said he made it.
Nice.
And so that was awesome. But then to talk to him that night, and just hear how stoked he was. Dad, it was so cool.
Right.
I'm at the top of the mountain with Reese Millen, and Paul Dallenbach, and we're eating donuts and having a snowball fight.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah, good stuff. But yeah, and since then he gets better and better. And he and I goofed around a couple weeks ago in some Miatas, and for the first time in his life, he beat me. He was quicker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man,
So
don't tell anybody. We'll edit that out.
Yeah, no, I'm all right. You know what? If there's one person you want to beat you, it's your kid. Now that was like in a showdown, and we've done it since like all the time at Lovable. He'd do 5 laps, I do 5 laps. Loser does 20 push-ups, and this was the first time he made me do push-ups. Now, by the end of the day, Daddy did get quicker, but you know what? That tiny stuff is hard to drive. Those Miatas,
Right.
they have you need a unique technique to drive them quickly.
He's how old?
He is now 22. He's
Oh,
22.
okay.
Did his first TCB race at Utah, and I'm smiling and cracking up as I think about it. And so he finishes second, and you show up at the end of the year, you got to carry the same weight as the guy who's leading the championship, which was his teammate. And that's always your objective when you have a teammate is to go quicker than that guy. And he did a great job, finished second. But I have video of him, going up on the podium, and like the first time he's by a trophy girl, and you can see he's all bashful and stuff. It was awesome. So, yeah, good dad moment.
So, along the lines of 22-year-olds, one of the mutual stories that I have about you that you confirmed for me was I have a friend named Adam Merzon, a guy I coach, and then you know Lynn Wilson, and Lynn and Adam, I think they either kind of grew up together or they have some sort of friendship. So when Adam found out I was going to World Challenge a couple years ago, he's like, "Oh, you're going to race against Johnny O'Connell." The story I know about that guy is that he used to ride a go-kart around his college campus to get to class. And so you were telling me a little different variation.
It's a little. I like that story.
Yeah,
I like that story, but I wouldn't trust anybody with leaving a go kart outside of one of the classrooms or the buildings.
Where was school?
But Denison University.
Okay.
And that's how same place Bobby Rahal went to.
Oh.
And Bobby was pretty instrumental in helping me out.
Really?
After I won my Atlantic Championship in '87. But the real story is that there was Fraternity Row, upon which there were nine frat houses, one of which Lynn was a part of. He was a Sigma Chi, and that's where all like the preppy guys went, and they thought they were quite important. All right, I was off the row. We were the only house off the row, Delta Chi, and we were maybe a little bit more crazy. Remember Animal House?
That's it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's
you
kind
were
of like
Delta.
Animal House.
Yeah.
Okay. We were not the "Thank you, sir. May I have another" fraternity. But yeah, you know what? The reason I chose Denison is because there was great racing.
Okay.
About an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I actually chose it because I could continue my go-karting, but yeah, now and then on a Friday or Saturday afternoon, before I was going to go to a race, I'd fire up my cart and zip through Fraternity Row, and this, if this was a two-stroke, this thing hauled ass.
Right.
And there was one time there was a semi coming up the hill, and I passed underneath it. So because haven't you always wanted to try that kind of track?
Totally.
You're like, and you're 19, 20 years old. It's not like you're dealing with a fully developed brain at that point anyway. And but yeah, no, he came up to me years later. He went on to become a really, I think successful oncologist at Yale, and great guy. And, there's two ways to go racing. One is to, beg, borrow, steal, be poor for a long, long time. And if the gods shine upon you, you finally get picked up and get paid. The other is to make a ton of money.
Right.
And those guys, I think, have a little bit more fun. And the odds of them, enjoying it are a little bit better because there's a lot more of them. But yeah, no, Lynn is a great guy, and he'll still, he'll text me or call me after races and try to get the inside scoop of what's going on. But great guy. Yeah, small world.
So you won the Formula Atlantic Championship, and I guess back then they used to do an East-West thing. And then the year you won the West Coast, Calvin Fish.
Calvin won the East Coast.
Won the East Coast,
yeah.
Which a lot of people don't realize that he actually raced very well, for quite a while against some very big names. Who were the guys in your championship on the West Coast that you were up against? Like anybody we know now?
You know what? Most of those guys, disappeared. They didn't
really?
last. Their fast guys were Jan Beekes.
Uh-huh.
One really strong guy, probably the strongest of all, was Jeff Krosnoff.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a great season that year. We all go through years where we have a good team, a bad team, everything fits, everything done. Parker Johnstone was very quick, and Dean Hall. Dean Hall was very quick, and but yeah, that was a fun year, and it was funny because I did Super V in 1986. And didn't get any wins. Had a bunch of podiums, but had several races I should have won. And would have 3 times during the year. There's a little tiny screw that holds the butterfly valve on that Volkswagen 1600. 3 times while leading, had one of those little screws back out and launched the motor. So at the end of that year, the guy that was sponsoring me, a great guy named Jerry Conrad, and but he's like, listen, I'm done spending money, but take all the equipment and whatever you get for it, great, and you can use that to go racing in '87. And back then, the budget to do Atlantic was about $170,000, and I had 72. And so I took it to a great guy named Alistair McNeil, and he hired a guy named Ricky Cameron.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will recognize that name because he's actually the only one I know that's still really in the sport. And Ricky was my crew chief, and we went off with a limited budget and won that championship. And again, that was critical because it was at Laguna Seca where I locked the championship up. And, Bobby Ray Hall was there. He actually came to our banquet, but he's like, listen, I know you went to Denison. And he made the huge mistake of, here's my card. If there's ever anything I can do for you, give me a call. So I think I waited 2 days. Hey, Bobby, it's Johnny O. How you doing, man? So,
Hello?
But yeah, that was a neat deal. But there, again, I've been very blessed to be doing it a long time. And still loving it. I got to do Le Mans again this year.
Yeah.
And I ran across, Alan McNish. And, again, I've known Alan since like '99. I mean, he and I raced a bunch together in prototypes.
Sure.
And I go up to him and I'm like, so tell me, dude, how hard is it being out of the car?
Right.
'Cause that's something I can't even fathom. And he's like, I was done. I was tired, I was hurting. I wasn't enjoying it. And he's now out of the car. He's having a great time. And and I was like, dude, I got to tell you what. I love it every bit as much as when I was 22.
Right.
It's the reason to wake up in the morning. So
that's the interesting thing about you to me is that when McNish said he was done, it kind of made sense because he's been busted up a few times, and so at a certain point you go, how much more of this can I really take? But I mean, you've taken your share of licks over the years, and doesn't seem like that slowed you down at all, or you're not thinking about it. I mean, have you had any of those recovery periods where you're like, this isn't worth it anymore?
No, you go through some times where your body hurts.
Right.
And it's funny because this goes back to when I was driving for Corvette. I remember going to see my doctor. I think my back had been hurting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, hey, when I'm done driving, okay, can I stop working out and all that kind of stuff? And he's like, no, never stop working out. And actually, there was a point there where I was considering, getting my back fixed with surgery. Mm-hmm. And a great guy, Phil Plaska, he's like, dude, 98% of the doctors in Atlanta will be happy to cut you. And I can cut you, and there's a 70-some-odd% chance you're going to feel better. He's like, but really, what you need to do is train harder, push through the pain. And he was right. I changed I do a whole lot of swimming now. And, but yeah, I mean, it's, it's part of the deal. Like you said, the big ones I had were on ovals, in IndyCar and Indy Lights. Never my fault. Always a mechanical. And, which is why I made that decision, man. I'm getting out of that crap. And
I'm on his side.
Oh yeah,
It's never been my fault.
Yeah, I've never met a race driver who was at fault for his crash.
Yeah. Well, no, I can bring up mechanics, and nobody likes you at this moment, and I'm right now at the top of the list. Anybody like him? No, there are no hands in this restaurant. And but also you can, the one, I did have a huge one in the Nissan at Watkins Glen. That people
funny enough, we were just watching that. But
yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
People can pull that one up. And then I also had a big one the first year at Petit Le Mans in one of the panels.
We'll probably link that video on our website, dinnerwithracers.com.
That one was interesting because I remember seeing it live, and you don't want to know how young, but I just watched it again on the trip over here because we were, reminded of that. So, Millen's off sideways. You don't see him coming. Obviously, you're going up through the S's, and you guys crash, and you're walking out of your car. There's clearly a massive wreck for anybody that's coming up the hill, and you're walking along the Armco. And you see a guy come at you, all of a sudden you have to leap over the fence, and You seemed pretty busted up at the time.
Let me tell a story.
Oh, boy. Yes, here we go.
All right, now, that was 93. I think it was 93.
I was 10 years old.
And you know, and Millen, he taught me a lot. But the guy, you know, about the out of the cockpit stuff.
And this is Rod Millen, Reese's dad.
No, this is Steve Millen.
Steve Millen. Okay, that's his uncle?
Yeah,
okay.
his uncle.
Gotcha.
And taught me a lot. Great politician out of the car. And never really liked the guy, though. and that's putting it mildly.
Okay.
And
We're gonna circle back to that. That's good.
Yeah. So all right. This is Watkins Glen. Okay. I get my first pole. All right. We're in the meeting before the start of the race, and we're racing against some fast guys. Darren Brassfield, wicked fast. Tommy Kendall, wicked fast. Paul Gentilozzi, when the car was right, could be wicked fast. And so I get my first pole. It was on a wet track, and I'm like, yay. All right, I'm going to dig. And then the morning of the race, you have the team meeting, and they're like, all right, here's what we want you to do. We want you to give Steve the start and then just fall in behind him and protect him. And
Where were you in the championship at this point?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
But at that part of the season, everybody's in the championship.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
You know, it's just that he was the designated
He was the
number
guy.
one guy.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I could tell Nissan stories forever. But so I'm like, tick, the start goes. All right, now Brassfield was, you know, if people don't know Darren Brassfield, there were weekends where Brassfield was so fast.
Yeah.
Other weekends he'd be completely lost. Well, this is one of those weekends where he's completely switched on. So he gets by me, he gets by Millen, disappears. Okay, and then Gentilozzi comes, he disappears. I think Tommy was having some issues. I don't think he was in the fray at that point. So I'm on the radio. God, let me go. And finally, they let me go. So I go by Steve. I go by Gentilozzi. I start catching up to Darren. First stops come in, and we have a crappy stop. So I come out, and I'm right behind Millen. And I'm like, can I go? And they're like, no, stay there. And literally, I was so angry in the cockpit. And I was like, screw this. Why even try? And so I backed out, and I let about 2 seconds, you know, gap get between us. And then I said to myself, and it's not uncommon to use profanity in the car.
On a podcast.
And
Yeah, what did you say word for word?
I was like, F this, you know. And so it was just started digging. Now, you know, well, that's what you say.
Right,
No, you know,
100%.
And going up the hill, okay, you know, the right-hander turn 2, then through 3, the left-hander. If you had the guts, you could do it flat. And I'd been breathing. I was like, I'm digging.
Right.
All right, so I go into 2. I'm full chat, okay, up the hill, full chat. Now Millen, who'd been 2 seconds in front of me, tangled with this cat. Okay, I don't know who was trying to pass who on the outside, and they're both driver's right, just past the crest of the hill. So anyway, you know, I come over the top of the crest, and I see Millen on the right-hand side, and I'm like, I know I can't lock him up because then I'll just slide right into him.
Yeah.
So and I've gone through and I've analyzed this, and I did about as good. My only move is to get the car to turn left, but I'm committed. You know,
Right,
I've
yeah.
come up that hill hauling,
Yeah.
and so I'm doing all I can. I can't tell, but Millen is rolling backwards, and if you watch it again,
Yeah.
he rolls into my path, and that is the first time, like in a race car where like I'm gonna. Thought I was going to get killed.
Actually scared.
Yeah. And no, I thought game over. And I mean crushing. I mean
Huge
every
crash. Huge
part
crash.
of my body hit. And this was pre-Hans.
Right.
So
Oh,
now,
yeah.
luckily, I was never back then a guy that kept my shoulder harnesses real tight. And so, you know, bang off the wheel and all that kind of stuff. And I come to a stop, and this was so funny because Clayton Cunningham built those cars. And there must have been 4 or 5 times during my career at Nissan where I caught on fire, and never once did the fire extinguisher work. And so I come to a stop, and I'm like, you know, trying to catch my breath. I'm like blown away I'm still alive. And I look, and there's like fire, you know, in front of me, and there's fire on the side. Not big fire, little fire. And I'm like, crap, you got to get out of this thing. So I start to get out, and P.J. Jones, okay, comes through, and I'm like, guys are still coming through here, you know. So finally I get out. I'm like, my whole body's in shock.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm like crawling along the guardrail.
Yeah.
This cat comes in a Porsche who hasn't slowed down at all. Now, when you watch the video, okay, it looks like I am diving over the guardrail because of his car, which, yes, it would have hit me, okay? I'm actually diving out of the way of a wheel that he's hit. Because he hit, he's hit a wheel, and that thing's coming at me. Now, if you've ever, like, lifted a racing tire, they're heavy.
And back then, those wheels were massive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're light now.
And so that would have killed me.
Oh, yeah.
And so so I flip over, and I'm like, and then I'm like, I'm down on the ground for about 2 to 5 minutes. Some guys help me out, and then I realize, holy crap, Steve's, how Steve.
Yeah.
And he's almost dead.
Yeah.
He's almost dead in the car. And so a miracle that he actually, survived that one. You go back later and you look at the video. And literally, had I gone another 20 feet further down the racetrack, where I would have dove over the guardrail is the entry to the racetrack. So it would have been about a 40-foot fall to the concrete below. So, that was that. You know what? Moments like that make you spiritual.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now we're definitely going to link this on the website. So if you're listening on iTunes, that's cool. But go to dinnerwithracers.com. Yeah. So why didn't you get along with Millen outside of? Was it just personalities clashing, or was it?
Yeah, no, he was just he was the number one.
And you were still coming up.
And most of the time I was quicker than him.
Right.
And so you had team orders and stuff like that. There was. In order for him to win the championship, I think it was in 03 or 04 or whatever, and I ended up finishing second. But I'm winning at Road Atlanta, and I'm like 12 seconds up on them, and they're on the radio saying, you got to slow down, you got to give it to him, you got to give it to him. And that, man, I just hate that crap.
Yeah.
But the objective for me had been put it so far that they can't do it. And then they start telling me, you're not going to make it on fuel. You're not going to make it on fuel.
Right. So now
which was I knew was total BS.
Right.
And but at the end of the day, they paid my bill. And so, going into the last lap, I came out of turn 12 and pulled right and really, really, really slowed down.
Made it obvious.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's the deal. You do that for your teammate, they ought to come up and recognize. Dude, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I can't. I really owe you, man. Buy you dinner, something like that. He wouldn't even recognize it. Yeah. And he and I got into a little bit of an argument that year. There was a race put on at Autopolis in Japan. They flew our cars over and we raced there, and I crushed them. And but
what I like is that you're humble about it.
But I just don't like it. And
wasn't clear.
But he's like, I had done an interview where I said, I was helped Steve win that championship, and he came up to me, what do you mean, win that championship? In his stupid Aussie accent, crazy Kiwi.
Not that we have a problem with Aussies, just that one.
As you can see, the anger remains.
Yeah. Why did you take your shirt off? Are you okay?
I know. Really. Somebody hit me up. But and then I explained it to him, and he was like, "That wasn't." I mean, not a pleasant guy. But to his credit, guy could drive fast.
Yeah.
Guy could drive fast on his day. It was wicked fast, and his style was to be ruthless in every aspect of the game,
right,
which meant politically as well.
Sure.
And again, he was the Nissan guy. He had that Stillen aftermarket part business.
Big
so,
deal. Yeah.
That was there were a lot of things. It was real funny because my boss at the time was a guy named Frank Hansowitz. And at the end of it was either 93 or 94. I went back and I had a good idea as to what Steve was making. And so I go in because I'm like jerky, cocky little guy. And I'm negotiating with him. And I'm going, I was faster here. I'm future, yada. And Frank was just like, listen, the sooner you realize that this game is a lot more than just being fast, the further you're going to go.
Right.
And so I didn't get my raise. But you know what? I mean, Frank was awesome. He was a great program manager for Nissan, and at the time there was also a guy named Kaz Kasner that ran NPTI. And actually, I had in '91, I started doing a bunch of work for MPTI and the Group C and
Yeah.
GTP stuff, which was awesome. You know, it was going to be Jeff Brabham and myself that got the IndyCar program. Nissan back then was looking at IndyCars, and unfortunately the yen tanked, the Japanese economy tanked. They
Right.
got rid of the guy who was president of Nissan, Frank Mignonelli, I think was his name, and replaced him with a guy that liked golf. But Frank once said to me, listen, at the start of every race, I give you 100% of a race car. Bring me back 1%, just win.
Right.
And so, you know, and Ryan, you can probably relate to this. When you're the poor guy coming up, one of the things that you need to develop is mechanical sympathy. You can't abuse your crap. You've got to be, you know, and back then you actually had to have a skill set as a driver, as in shifting
Right.
and braking, you know, so you don't lock up tires, and good heel toe, all the stuff that really, you know, that I miss in the sport.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, he taught me a lot, and you know, those sayings like that, bring back 1%,
Yeah.
is pretty, you know, it stuck with me.
I want to go down the road of personalities with the people that you've gotten to drive with and things like that, but I got to hear about, and I know our listeners would want to hear about, tell us how badass that 300 ZX twin turbo car was to drive. 750 horsepower. You guys, that was a car that was a staple of my childhood. Like, I love 935 Porsches, the Nissan GTP cars, as well as the GT cars. Like, you know, that was part of the deal for IMSA back then.
Yeah.
You guys were like one of the superstar cars, and everyone wants to know how cool those cars were to drive. I'm sure you get asked that a lot still in your career.
So cool.
Yeah.
I mean, just to have that kind of power,
Yeah.
and you know, that was a 2.8 liter twin turbo V6.
Yeah.
710 foot-pounds of torque.
Nice.
If people know racetracks, you know, at Firebird Raceway where Bondurant is,
Okay.
there's a place called the West Track, and you get up to, you know, fourth. Yeah, I think it was just fourth gear. It's a tiny little place.
Yeah.
But you'd be wheel spinning
Everywhere.
all the way to the braking zone. It was, dude, it was so cool. And but a really tricky car to drive. You know, Yokohama had built a special tire for that car,
Yeah.
really high-profile tire. And that kind of that helped you manage things a little bit.
Right.
But you would get guys in there that you would swear were top guys. Jeff Brabham drove it.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure it out.
Really?
Couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
And but you know, once you figured it out, and once you could learn to anticipate the boost, man, that thing went. And
Right.
and it was so cool back then because, you know, you didn't have, you know, the traction control. You didn't have ABS. It was still normal shifting. And actually, I want to say it was 94, 95 when we were running, you know, all the guys. Remember back in Formula One back then, Mansell and Senna, and you'd watch them on TV, and all the titanium sparks are flying. And so we would run titanium buttons, and Oldsmobile was running titanium, Ford was. And I'll never forget, you know, at Road Atlanta. This was before 10. This was old Road Atlanta when you would come
dip.
out of 7 and you had the dip.
The dip. Yeah.
We're like at $190 there in
Right.
this car. And I remember following Darren Brassfield, and I'm just like a car length off him, you know, and we go through the dip, you know, on the first several laps, full tanks, you know, tire pressures aren't all the way up, and just
Sparks.
sparks,
Yeah,
dude, like
yeah.
you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's like glowing, your windshield glowing, and just thinking,
re-entry.
this is so cool, you know. And so yeah, that was fun. That was a magical time. But yeah, hard car to drive. I was very lucky, you know, because at that time, Nissan had sold one of the older cars to a team in Costa Rica.
Right.
And so there was actually a Central American championship back then. And so I was flying down to Central America, to Costa Rica, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, doing this championship. And one of my best wins, one of my best memories is at Costa Rica. And they got a little racetrack outside. It's actually pretty cool. But safety standards, dude,
Don't
did not
exist.
exist. You're going down, there's like a back straightaway where it was lined with trees.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because the hospitals are so good in Costa Rica. But
This is a while ago, too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this would have been 93 or 94.
Right.
Okay.
And but they had huge crowds showed
Oh,
up,
yeah.
and the car dealerships.
Yeah, you could see
would-
them. They're standing by the track.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. That was Panama. At an airport where they kept the crowd away from the racetrack with barbed wire.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Which means
so-
keeps
yeah.
you from them from
Yeah.
with
Oh,
barbed
yeah,
wire.
Yeah.
with barbed wire.
Wow.
And that was one of those races where the car we actually broke in Panama. I was like, thank God that thing broke. And when it parked, when it broke, normally you pull to the inside of the circuit because if you do that, the team can get to it. Okay, I intentionally
right,
parked
yeah.
on the outside of the circuit.
Right, don't fix this thing.
Never want to see this
Right
again.
by the Marlboro display where there were pretty girls and beer. So
Weird.
Yeah, I know. That's Central America, baby. But anyway, so we go on and we win this race in Costa Rica, right? And it's a cool-on lap, and I'm going through this one corner. It's one of the last corners on the racetrack, and it was all Toyota. There had to have been like 2,000 or 3,000 people, in this Toyota section, and they started throwing beer bottles at me. I was like, yeah, this is so cool. This is so cool.
I've made it.
Yeah.
Made it.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Great memory.
That's cool. I didn't
Yeah.
even realize there was races down there back then,
Yeah.
outside of like a WC type of thing.
Yeah.
You did Indy cars for a brief period of
Yeah.
time. That would have been right around after that, right?
At the end of
95, 96-ish?
at 96
Yeah.
when they started the IRL.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to. In the late 80s, Ray Hall got me a test with Paul Stewart, Jackie Stewart, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Went over there, smoked their guys, couldn't get the money.
Love it.
And,
I love it.
Just so humble about
actually-
it. That's what I love.
Well, but
He's
Yeah,
right.
it's all
He's
good,
right.
man. Yeah. No,
it
you
was
can't stop
actually,
it.
you know what, tested against Coulthard,
Yeah.
DeFerrin, and Mika Salo.
Huh.
Wow.
Had them all by a second. And with Bobby Rahal and Jackie Stewart trying to find money, we couldn't find the money. It was
Yeah.
a pretty
Believe it.
depressing deal. But yeah, no. So yeah, at the end of the Nissan deal, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And so the team scraped up money. I scraped up some money and some sponsors, and we did the first 3 races of the IRL. And I'll tell you, this is my first thoughts. Remember the first race was at Disney World?
Yeah.
It was a Reynard, 95 Reynard.
Yep.
Cosworth engine. And I'm like, pulling out of the pit lane. And all I could think was, I can't believe I don't get to road race this thing.
Right.
Right.
Because the car's
I
so
believe
cool.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, ovals are great, and there are a lot of people that like ovals. If your car's right, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. And, that year, so we actually went to the, if you remember, it was a 3-race championship, first one.
Yep.
There was Disney, finished 10th, Phoenix, I finished 3rd, and went to Indy. And we didn't have the money to run Indy. So, you got to do your rookie orientation. That's the least amount of time you can do that in is 40 laps. We did it in 40 laps. And then we sat.
Wow.
Yeah, and finally, we had to do some running, and I went into qualifying for the Indy 500 having done 120 laps there.
Yeah.
And now most guys before qualifying are over 1,000 laps.
Right,
now.
right,
You know,
right.
they tune
Especially
up
at that time when you had days and days and days of practice. Yeah.
And literally every day, and this is no lie, you'd show up, and you're wondering, man, am I going to Methodist?
Right. Right.
And on the day that I qualified was the day Scotty Brayton got killed.
Oh, wow.
And I was the last one. I left at 5:59. Gun went off at 6, and but got in the show. And you'll remember that year was the year. Again, it was the IRL kart split,
Right.
Yeah.
and all the the officials are like, just we need a clean start. We need a clean start. We need a clean start. And I'm starting 29th, and actually, inside of me is for what was it? Fermin Velez.
Fermin Velez. Yeah.
But I woke up that morning and I'm thinking to myself, okay, out of 33 guys here, there's probably about 25 that are going to take it easy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to be one of those guys. Because I knew, because I'm like,
I know.
if
Sure.
I go, I'm going to get a ton of positions. So even before the first stop, I'd moved up to 8th.
Nice.
And was digging it. I'm like,
20
I'm in the Indy
21
500. I'm in
spots.
the Indy 500.
Right.
I'm still running slower than the fast guys, which was Lyondike and Buddy Lazier, and there were some
Right.
other guys that were really hooked up. Again, on an oval, if your car's right, it's easy.
Yeah.
Easy. My car went right. But then at the first stop, we lost a fuel pump, and it was game over. Then went back the next year, trying to beg, borrow,
Right.
get into a car, and that was the year Scott Sharp driving for Foyt. He had 2 wrecks on his own.
Yeah.
And they deemed him unfit, and so AJ was like, I don't want to put you in the car. And all that. That was a pretty crappy Texas accent. Right
Let's hear another
there.
one.
About that. Yeah, well.
Yeah,
There I was in Texas with AJ Foyt. So But get in the car, and in 32 laps, okay, was third quickest on the day. And literally the racetrack had gone from a place that was wicked scary to where like, oh my God, this is fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got a car I can win the Indy 500 with. And came off turn 4, got on the radio and said, guys, we got a really great car. Went into turn 1, an oil fitting broke. I 360'd
And this was
on
the new
my
car.
oil,
Yeah, right.
and feet first into the wall, visor open, shrapnel and fire, burns my face. And I remember I came to a stop, right? And the great thing about wrecking at Indy, man, they're there in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, blah, 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 shaking off the cobwebs. And I'm like, what happened? And then the guy goes, you wrecked. And I'm like, no shit, I'm like, I wanted to know, was it a gust of wind?
Right.
Why did I wreck?
Right.
So then they take you to the infield hospital, and I actually got taken to the infield hospital a couple times on ovals. First thing they do is they cut off your clothes. They cut your suit off, and then you're like, you're dingy. And I remember hearing the nurse say, "Wow." No, I'm kidding. And but
Fellas.
I know.
Guys,
Dang.
ladies, guys.
You thick thing. But I remember at Indy looking down at my left foot, and I mean I'm in like agony, and they won't give you drugs, until they really
know where you're
assess what is, how damaged are you.
Right.
But looking, when they cut my boots off and stuff, and looking at my foot, and my ankle was right, but my toes were backwards. So I had spun my foot in the shoe.
Up and around.
Yeah, so like where my big toe is where my little toe was.
It's basically upside down.
Yeah. And so I took that upon myself as a good time to go to sleep. And I remember just, rather than give me a helicopter ride, they put me in an ambulance because it's only like a 15, 20-minute ride to Methodist.
Yeah.
And there's so many funny stories I can tell about this. But that road stinks. I mean, every single bump. And they finally get me in, and I'm like, give me Demerol. And finally, I remember them giving me Demerol. Then I wake up and I'm in my room. And again, if there's a place to wreck, it's Indy, because if you're a driver, they put you in a suite with a waiting room and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the nurses
Take care
are
of you.
great. So,
Yeah.
But we're always disappointed. Foyt never stopped by.
Huh.
Never.
Really?
Yeah. Never. You would have thought he'd been like, hey, John, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
And then after I start to heal, it's like, listen, that wasn't your fault. You show up next year, we're going to get you in the 500. And so go there in '98, and I'm like, AJ, you told me, you're a handshake man.
Yeah.
That you'd put me in a car. Well, I got Billy running good and Kenny's running good. I just don't think we can do it. So, so kind of, and then AJ, up till that point, had been one of my childhood heroes.
Right.
And it wasn't so much after that.
Yeah. Well,
So, it happens.
so '98, that's when you kind of came into my world, because my dad helped Don Panos launch the Panos U.S. program.
Yeah.
And in '96 or maybe '97.
Might have been '97.
97, yeah. So '96, they ran the first car in U.S. RRC or whatever it was, and it was Doc Bundy and Andy Wallace. And then '97, we switched to the 2-car team with the Vistion colors, and you were in one of them, and Eric Bernard was there, Andy Wallace, David Brabham, all sorts of really great guys.
Eric Bernard was awesome.
Yeah.
Because he could speak perfect English.
He's French,
But
for
he's
those that know.
French.
Yeah.
But whenever there was a pretty girl around, dude, the accent.
Turned it on.
I am sorry, my English she's not so good. But you are so pretty. Yeah, he was. That cat was the smoothest Frenchman I ever knew, and he could drive. And
Yeah.
you know what? It was an awesome time, because I know there are a lot of mostly it's British guys that don't like him, but Tony Dow was running the team.
Yep.
That is one of the most committed guys to winning ever were.
Very much so.
And you'd walk into the shop on like a Tuesday, and he'd look at you and he'd rub his hands together, with this 10-year-old boy look, and you knew that he was up to something to get you something. And Tony didn't like me at first.
Okay.
It was actually Don. It was actually in 98. Okay, when I'm trying to get the, deal with Foyt, and Don wants me in one of his cars for Le Mans.
Yeah.
So they had to kick one of their guys out, and then my teammates, and they put me on the French team. Okay, with Eric and a guy named Christophe Tinsu.
Tinsu, yep.
Yep. And it's a French team.
Which is hilarious
yeah.
to think of Eric Bernard, Christophe Tinsu, Johnny O'Connell.
Johnny O'Connell.
Yeah. And then all French mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
French everything.
Luckily,
Yeah.
this is one of those moments. I studied French
Okay.
when I was younger,
There
so
you
I
go.
could speak French.
Which is a big.
I didn't let them know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so Tony doesn't want me in his car. He wanted British guys, and I think maybe Raoul Boisel was one, Brabham and Wallace. I can't remember that.
Yeah,
the other
that
side
sounds about
completely. But they don't put me in the car until 11 o'clock. There's an hour left to go. They put me out at dark. And I wind up going faster than Eric and Christophe. And by I want to say it was like a second and a half. And I get out of the car, and Jean-Paul Driel, he was
Yep.
the
Dams,
program
basically.
manager. I think he still runs Dams.
Yeah, he does.
And he comes up, Johnny, you are so good. We are so proud you are part of this team. He hadn't said 2 words for me
Before
other
that,
than,
yeah.
yeah. Other than, and then the best thing was Tony Dow coming up and saying, I don't know what they're so excited about. I know you'd do it. And
Now he's your best friend. Yeah.
the great thing about Tony Dow, once you showed to him you could do the job,
Yeah.
you were his boy.
That's right.
And so yeah, we had a good run. There were years there where we could have won.
Yeah.
We could have won especially when Robert Yates was building the engines. That was a killer year. But some great stories. And also huge opportunity. If fans remember in 2000, Mario Andretti was part of the team.
That's right.
And he was teamed with Brabham. And
That's when they had gone into an LMP1 car. Or
correct.
P900
correct.
car at that point.
That is correct. It was an LMP1 car. And so to get to be teamed with Mario Andretti is
Amazing.
pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
Well, the first time he gets in the car, it's Road Atlanta. It's like it's December or something like that, and I go and I'm running and I'm doing 11s, like 11.2, 11.3.
Which is currently faster than like everything that ran at Petit Le Mans this year.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. This
Yeah.
was a fast car.
Yeah.
So Mario gets in the car, and the first day of running, he's like in the 16s, and I'm like, it's Mario Andretti. He
Give him a minute.
Yeah, he hadn't been in the car for a while. Well, the next morning, the manager for the team, the chief engineer, a guy named Chris Gordon, great guy, brilliant guy, and he's like, Johnny, do me a favor and take Mario around the racetrack and show him what you're doing. And I'm like, I'm not taking Mario Andretti around the racetrack and telling him what I'm doing. It's Mario Andretti.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, do it. And so I'm like, all right. So I get Mario in my – I had a crappy little pickup truck at the time because we're going around. And I just remember leaving pit lane. And I'm like, man, I got Mario Andretti, You want to ask him for an autograph, but you're supposed to tell him what the heck you're doing.
Right.
And so I'm like, Mario, I got to tell you, this is truly embarrassing and humbling for me, but this is what I'm doing. And he was very cool about it.
Yeah.
And he, by the end of the day, he'd worked down, to like the 14s and stuff.
Sure.
A hard car to drive. Hard car, and you know what I mean? And
Big commitment, I'm sure.
Big commitment. And
Yeah.
Road Atlanta is not an easy place. But that did not turn out to be that year at Le Mans, I was having a riot.
Yeah.
My teammate at the time, Hiroki Kato, he's about 115 pounds.
Japanese.
Japanese guy, soaking wet. And he and I are sharing like a little cubicle to sleep in. And at the start of the race, now have you ever seen a really skinny guy in his underwear? It's funny looking, right? So Hiroki's got his own.
Can I just commend you on every way you start a story is unbelievable.
Oh, thank you.
It's
That's going to be the title for this one. Is Have you ever seen a skinny guy in his underwear? It's hilarious.
It's funny looking. Big and a skinny Asian guy, it's even funny. And so he's got his own therapist from Japan.
Right.
And so I go in like after like my first stint, or I'm about to start my second, and Hiroki's getting massaged, and the guy's putting medicated tape on his neck and shoulders, right? I'm like, what is that? And he's like, special Japanese magic tape, make you feel better. I'm like, well, give me some of that crap. So, I put it on my shoulders, and it helped keep you loose and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm having a great Le Mans. I mean, that if you had, for drivers that haven't been there, drivers that have been there, man, it's like, it's magical. I mean, it is so cool. And so I do the stint you want there is that morning stint right
Happy
as the
hour.
sun's coming up, man, because it's super quick. And so was doing like a double or triple killer lap times where smoking Brabham, Magnussen, and Andretti, and we were running fifth, which is where we wound up finishing. But I remember getting out of my car. And I'm going back, and it's like 8:30 in the morning, and I'm so stoked and loving life. And I'm walking back to our little area where we're sleeping and all that kind of stuff. And I walk by Mario. I'm like, hey, Mario, having fun? And he said, effing wonderful. And I
Wait. So you censored that?
well, yeah, there's Mario Andretti.
Yeah.
That's what he gets. He gets censorship.
Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on there? Well, he'd had a big off in Indy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And brought it in, but that was he was just having a hard time finding the pace. Anyway, so I go into our little trailer thing, and Hiroki's there. And he's like a mummy. He's got Japanese magic tape all over his body.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, Hiroki, man, how you doing? And he's like, oh, Johnny-san, I don't think I can get in anymore. And I'm like, all right, I'll go the rest of the way. But you have these funny visuals of
Skinny,
Hiroki mummified
skinny
in
Japanese guys in their underwear.
magic
Yeah.
tape. But,
I have those too.
yeah, usually. But that was a fun Le Mans. That was a fun Le Mans.
Is that what sets you up for the Corvette program? Does that get you in
Well,
the door?
you know
over
what? I could see what was going on at Panos, and that Don was pulling away from the racing and putting more and investing more in the race series. But I could see what was going on, and every year, Don would bring in a different team manager. He let go of Tony Dow. He brought in another British guy. So I was not happy, and I called up Doug Feehan. Corvette was just starting to appear on the scene, and I could see some things going on. And in my kind of jerky way, I got his phone number from Marnie Lincoln, and she worked at Road Atlanta at the time. And I was like, and literally, I got his voicemail, and I'm like, Doug, this is Johnny O'Connell calling. You might remember me from those days when I used to beat up on you in the Nissan. And
Yes,
this is
good
almost,
to hear from you.
Yeah. This is almost verbatim. Yeah, how to get a job. And
For you kids out there.
yeah. And literally, and I was like, hey, listen, if your dance card isn't filled for next year, I'd love to talk to you. Okay? Literally got a call back from them 8 hours later saying, let's do something. And I was just hired to do the long races.
Yeah.
We did for our very first race, Daytona. The Earnhardts.
2001.
Literally.
2001.
Yeah.
That was my first race as a mechanic.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was my
Sweet.
first race and my career started there.
That was
weekend.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was really. So, I've been racing 17, 18 years, and you're just starting. Wonderful.
Yeah, as a mechanic.
I know,
as a
no,
mechanic.
that's all right.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, give me a couple years to start driving.
There you go. Well, it's playing off for you. And so I, very first race with them, we win Daytona overall.
Yeah,
and
huge deal.
It was a
huge
big
deal.
It was a big deal. And you know what I mean? One of the, rocking chair equity is a great way to refer to it. Not many guys can say that they have drafted with Big E at Daytona.
Absolutely.
And I remember, we were running faster. He was still, and he was a great guy. He was like, Johnny, anything you can tell me about my technique, help me get better, help me get better. And you love that. You love that. And but I remember, in my first stint coming around and to lap him, we, you look, you even had data back then, and for some reason or another, he and Little E would come through, onto the banking into turn one, and by the time they got to the braking zone for the first chicane, and the chicane wasn't the stupid chicane they have now, it was the old bus stop
Pretty
that
fast.
really had a good rhythm to it.
Yeah.
That they should change it back to.
Absolutely.
But they would be faster, and you're like, what are they doing? Because you know what? Math tells me if I exit this corner faster, by the end of the straightaway, I'm going to be faster. And it wasn't working in that case. And none of us could figure it out, but it was both Big E and Little E. And there was the same thing coming out of the bus stop. They'd be faster to start finish. And so rather than go by him, I'm like, I'm going to follow you for 2 laps so you can show me. So I learned what he was doing. But I remember, dude, clear as a bell, like coming out of the old bus stop, and I'm like tucked up underneath him. I'd never seen a shift light come on, till that time. Before start finish, my light's on. I'm getting right on tickling the rev limiter, and I was like, man, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. I'm right behind Big E,
Yeah.
And then, I remember, I passed him on the exit going into Oval Turn 1. I can't remember what number corner that is, 6 maybe, and gave him a wave as I went by. So, but that was man. And then we went on to win that. And then, if you remember, Chris Neifel was going to be Fellows teammate that year, and Chris was offered the job as chief steward for CART.
Yeah.
And he took that, and Fian was like, "You're our boy."
Yeah.
So, and then the rest is history. Just went on and teamed with Ron and had great success with him.
Yeah, and you guys obviously probably formed a friendship because you were teamed up for so long together.
Oh yeah.
It was Fellows, and then obviously you were teamed up with Andy Pilgrim for a long time in different forms of racing. Those are the guys that you still keep up with those guys?
Oh yeah. Ron actually, was staying at the house.
Yeah.
Over for Petit Le Mans.
Because you guys spent so much time together. Because not only you have a really busy testing and racing schedule, but Corvette does a ton of PR, and they really utilize their drivers as like, hey, we're selling cars, and you and Ron are probably at the time their target demographic for who they're selling it to.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
North American guys that are in their 30s to 40s. That race cars and can have a beer with you afterwards.
Oh yeah. Well, now it's and again, back then you could be really close to the fans. They weren't intrusive and all that kind of stuff. And I've always felt that it is very important for us as ambassadors to the sport to grow the sport. Do all you can for the fans. Make it approachable. You don't need to be arrogant, and there's a lot of guys out there that are arrogant.
Why we created this.
Yeah, well,
this is for that.
One of the greatest things, again, Don Panos is for a guy that wasn't a racing guy. Remember what ALMS was? ALMS for the fans.
Yeah.
For the fans, and that I think has so much to do. When you go to an IMSA race now and you see all those fans on the grid walking, that started with the American Le Mans
ALMS.
Series. Never had been done before that. But yeah, so I had a great first year at Corvette. And again, you'll as a factory driver, you'll appreciate this. In the off season, the way the rules were in 2001, that guy that qualified would get a point. Get a point. I went into 2000. I'm a driver. I want to win a championship. And so in the off season, I negotiated with the team. Hey, listen, you know what? I want to run for this championship. I know Ron's my teammate, and he wants to run for the championship. And I'm like, but you know what? I need to have that same fair shot. And and they're like, okay, no, that's fair deal. You guys, whoever gets the most polls and all that kind of stuff can get it. We get to Sebring, and that week, IMSA changes the rules.
Okay.
So that there's an extra point. They stopped the point for qualifying, but an extra point to whichever driver was in the car the longest.
Oh,
and
interesting.
And now in hindsight, I should have addressed it before the race.
Yeah.
So we go out and we're going to win this thing. Okay, they pull Ron out at like 7:30. I'm supposed to be in to the end. Okay, I'm the only guy that's won there. I'd won 3 times there already.
Yeah, you've won Sebring like 7 times or something, right?
Yes, 8, I think.
Oh, sorry, 8.
But anyway, but that's not part of the story. So I'm in the car and I'm like, and I'm hitting my marks, and my eyes are adjusted and everything is right. I got the rhythm. I know what I need to do. I'm hitting my lap time.
Yeah.
And with about, I do my last stop. I know it's my last stop. And then after about like 10, 15 minutes later, they say, pit this lap. What are you talking about? Pit this lap.
Yeah.
I take this thing home. And they're like, no, pit this lap. And I realized they're yanking me so Ron can get the point because they've made the decision he's going to be the champion.
He's the guy.
He's going to be the champion. And I don't fault them for that. What I fault them for is not taking me aside before saying, listen, I know this was your deal.
Here's the deal.
And all that kind of crap. I get out of the car, dude. I'm on fire.
Yeah.
I am so. This actually turns into a really cool story, even better story. So I get out of the car, right, and I'm like crazy Irish redhead on fire.
Yeah.
And Doug Feehan and Herb Fischel, two top guys. Herb Fischel was the big dog at GM at the time. They're sitting in chairs, at the back of the Sebring garage, and I get out, man, and I'm like, just want you both to know that the car is effing good, but I mean, they could tell I'm like crazy wacko.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy named Gary Claudio, and they all see me get out. Now we're going to win the race, but
Something's wrong.
dude,
Yeah.
and I go back to the transporter, and I think I broke a locker or two by punching it. I mean, I was so angry. And the reason being is you put so much into the off season with your training and your visualization and all that kind of stuff. We get up on the podium and all that kind of stuff. And Robin Pratt, God love her, she's like, hey, you won. Settle down. I know you're pissed, but you won. And I'm like, all right. So the next day, driving back to Flowery Branch from Sebring, I realized, well, that was probably pretty stupid, letting all these top execs see you go completely psycho and mental. And so I call up Feehan, listen, I'm sorry, but it was wrong to pull me out of the car and all this kind of stuff, all the things you told me. And he's like, listen, don't worry about it, and all that kind of stuff. And do the same with Claudio and Gary Pratt. I go through the line, and Herb Fischel, I leave now Herb is the guy.
He's big time.
He's
big time.
He is the guy that can, they can all fire me, but he's really the guy.
Right. He can fire everyone.
Yeah. And so I call him. I don't get a call back. Monday goes by.
Start shaking
Tuesday
a little
goes
bit.
by. Wednesday goes by. By Wednesday, I'm writing a list of teams that I'm going to have to call. Friday shows up, and he's like, Johnny, how are you doing? I'm like, good, Herb. He was from like South Carolina or North Carolina. He's like, how's Flowery Branch? I love Flowery Branch. He starts going into like a 5-minute talk about Flowery Branch, how much he loves it, how he had one of the best meals of his life at a restaurant here.
Which is where we are now.
Yeah, Moonie's
Oh,
barbecue.
yeah, which is clearly. And I didn't see the wine list, though. But
it's a fine Boone's Farm for you, sir.
Everybody loved a Boone Farm at one point in their life. And so finally, you know what? And this is a guy that gets it.
Yeah.
This is when I was I dig this team. I dig GM.
Yeah, the guy called you back.
Oh, well, he called me
He doesn't
back.
have to. He didn't have to call you at all.
And we're talking. He's like, well, Herb, listen, I just wanted to apologize. I know I was really intense and angry and all that kind of stuff, when I got out of the car. And I was just pissed off. You guys shouldn't have pulled me out of the car. I had the rhythm. I'd won that race before. It was John Rice's, our engine builder's last race. I wanted to send him out with a win. It was a mistake. And he's like, I tell you what, Johnny, it's when you don't get pissed off that when we pull you out of a car that we're not interested in you. You're doing a great job.
The right attitude.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And so, I think Ron, got wind. Actually, I know he got wind that I was unhappy because I remember us, we were racing at Sonoma, and it was just a stupid rule.
Yeah,
if you're
it sounds
sharing
ridiculous.
with a guy
Yeah.
all year long, 50-50,
Right.
you
Yeah.
both we should be the champion.
Right.
And but Ron, Ron has got a crazy amount of integrity, really great guy. And but he pulled me aside, we had a bus back then, and at Sonoma, he's like, listen, I know you've got my back this year, next year, okay? We'll switch the tables so you can be the champion. And I was like, all right. And that was cool because that,
Right.
again, it.
He recognized your effort
Oh, yeah.
and made it.
Settles
He
you
didn't
down.
want to just be like, hey, he didn't want to be milling
He
to
didn't
you.
exactly. He
Yeah.
wasn't milling. He
Yeah.
did the right thing. So
Yeah.
we go on, and Ron, wins the championship that year. And very, very cool. So we win the championship. The next year, he and I are winning the championship again, and we go to race at Laguna, and he and his wife Linda had gone out and bought me the same a replica of the championship ring
that's awesome.
that
Yeah.
he received
Yeah,
in
yeah,
2002.
that's fantastic.
So even though I can't in my mind, I was co-champion
Right.
in
Yeah,
2002.
Absolutely.
It's not in the record books or whatever.
but we know.
But that was, to me, that was one of the coolest things any teammate could ever do. And since that point, we had a great run, 5-6 years together.
Yeah.
You've like half a dozen times already. You've referenced how the cars today with driver aids and all the stuff out that don't match what you drove in the 80s and 90s. I mean, to exactly that point,
Stupid rules that we just talked about.
and all the driver aids.
Yeah.
Where I've read a few of your blogs where you've been critical of some of the younger guys driving a World Challenge, whatnot. I mean, where do you see the sport going right now?
Where are things going? I don't know. It seems like everybody wants a trophy every single time.
Right.
I think that's wrong.
Yep.
You know, back when I drove for Nissan, if we built a better car, we'd win 8 out of 10 races, and we deserved to win it
Right.
because we had done our homework.
People keep watching F1.
Yeah.
Same 2 cars are winning every
Same
weekend.
exactly.
People keep watching. Cars keep showing up.
One of the best things, and this, man, I wish this is how it was. You know, Corvette first competed at Le Mans in 2000.
Yeah.
Okay, they got it handed to them.
Yeah.
By Viper. Okay. A month or so goes by, they fly over to have a meeting with the ACO, and they're like, listen, you know, this is the data shows that we're 3 miles an hour down on the straightaway, we're braking, and they're showing all the data, and they're like, okay, we want a different profile wing, we want louvers, ask all the stuff, and to their credit, the ACO was like, no, you must build a better car. Wow.
Yeah.
What a novel idea. So
Right.
what did Corvette do? They went back, they fixed their stuff, they got
Yeah.
everything better. We went back in 2001 and won it. And so I wish it was more like that. I mean, it's funny, and it is relevant because, particularly with Ryan being the factory Acura guy. Acura displays your new car. Mid-Ohio. Stunning.
Yeah.
Beautiful, sexy car. And everybody like, ooh, and, they're going to kill everybody. No, they're not. They're not. Because you know what? They're going to, if they go out and they go fast, what are they going to do? Well, they're not going to make the rest of us up our game. They're just going to dumb them down.
Yeah.
So it is, that's what I hate. That's what I hate. So, I mean, that part of the sport is very frustrating. You really, and the reason being, I think fans get ripped off.
Oh, yeah.
Because it very much has the appearance that victories and championships aren't won on the racetrack. They're won in the boardroom.
Yeah. Or in a rule book.
Yeah.
Or the thing that's frustrating
Well, it's not
for me
even the
is
rule
that,
book. It's like, dude, whether it's ALMS or World Challenge, before the last race of the season, they're still tweaking cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's up with that, dude?
Yeah.
I'm not like a rocket scientist, but you go to Barber. You had a McLaren factory with Perret,
Yeah.
Cooper, me in Cadillacs, and Patrick Long in a Porsche. Finished the race within 2 seconds. Completely green race.
Yeah.
Okay. Patrick was the fastest. He actually got held up behind his teammate. So had that race gone on, Porsche would have won. You didn't need to tweak with things. At that point right there, you're 3-4 races into the season. What did you need to do? Well, you needed to look at the Acura, give them a little bit. Look at the Bentley, give them a little bit. Look at the Nissan, give them a little bit. All right, now we're closer. I mean, the concept of BOP works to a degree if you're not tweaking it, because there's going to be a track that's going to suit the Acura, Road America.
Yeah.
Okay, places like that. There's going to be a track that
No.
suits our racetrack.
The series gave us help that weekend because it's a home race. You didn't read that on the internet?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. No.
I
The
just
series let us win that one.
Dude, you're
it's our home
buying
track.
lunch. I got to say something nice. No. Yeah, but you know what? See, that's just it. That again, that's the perception that fans have at the way things are being played.
Right.
What fans don't know, and I know it because I pay attention, is that you guys have been testing, testing, and Acura became more involved in your program as the season went along. So of course you're going to get stronger.
Yeah.
So that was not a gift. That was well earned. That actually was my worst weekend, because that was a race where that killed me. But for that, I think I'd be leading points. But anyway, we digress. It's a very frustrating deal, because I'm not a rocket scientist, but I guarantee I can get these cars close. And then what happens is we go to a racetrack that's going to suit his car, and he's going to win. And then we're going to go to a track with tight corners, and the McLaren or the Porsche with the engine in the back is going to win.
Yeah.
And the fans get rewarded that way. So again, that's just my 2 cents in philosophy. But I've been doing this game longer than anybody that is making the decisions up high. There's not a person at Pirelli World Challenge at any level that has, I've been doing this 30 years professionally now.
Right.
So, I wish they, would now and then call me just to run something by me, but my phone never rings.
All right, kind of switching gears a little bit. You have any missed opportunities, like, in your career? Like, did you ever get, like, a big test for somebody that we would never have known because this is pre-social media, or, you weren't allowed to say anything at the time 5 years ago or whatever? But like, did you ever test for like a Bill Riley or somebody or a GTP team, and it just like, no, we went a different direction? And
Twice.
Okay.
Okay. Most people don't know that I tested for Jackie Stewart, Paul
Right,
Stewart at Thruxton. And
what kind of car was that?
That was a Formula 3 car.
Okay.
Formula 3 car
Right.
at Thruxton. And I remember it was so cool because I got back to the States. I went to Laguna. Bobby was there. And going up to him, he was like, dude, way to go. Way to go. He was really, really stoked because he put his reputation on the line with Jackie Stewart, and so we made that happen. Unfortunately, we didn't get the money.
Right.
But I had, at that stage, I was all, I want to be an F1. I want to be an F1. And had we been, maybe it would have happened. Who knows? But the other is, and this is kind of cool. This is almost like, I don't know whether you or viewers believe in destiny or that God's got a path for us or whatever. But at that time, I'd been living in Northern California. It was 1991. And I'd been, keeping myself fresh driving by working at the Bondurant School. They had the 5-liter Mustangs. You get to drive Sears Point 4 days a week. And man, me and Chris Cook, we'd go out every day and burn fuel and just work on technique, And I mean, it was like Top Gun every single day. Well, the school moves down to Arizona, and my being a redhead, I'm like, I don't want to move to Arizona. Man, it's a desert. That place would suck.
It's like putting a fork in the microwave.
Yeah. And I'm living with my girlfriend, who would then become my wife, and I did a ride and drive program. Now I'm living in Sonoma, and for me to spend $150,000, I could get a 1-bedroom condo in that area at that time. So I do a ride and drive program for Nissan, and and this was like in '90, and I pick up a real estate guide, and for $150,000, you could get a 4-bedroom home, brand new, on a golf course, right? And so I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And then, and I've gone a couple months without being in a car, and finally I'm like, let's move to Phoenix. And so we moved to Phoenix, and I go back to work for Bob. No lie. I'm there 2 weeks, and on the east track, the west track, I pull in one morning, and NPTI is there with 2 transporters, okay? And Brabham's running, and Bob Earl's running, and who else? I think Lion Dyke was there as well. And so I go over at lunchtime just to kiss ass. It's what you're a young guy, you got to do. And
you don't do that anymore, right?
I still do. You always, make people love you. And so I go over there, and I'm talking to one of the mechanics, and he's like, "Hey, dude, Brabham's got to leave early tomorrow. Do you want to finish his work?" And I'm like, "You're kidding me." And now this is like, remember the NPTI GTP car?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Do you want to test the new Corvette?
And I'm like, heck yeah. He's like, well, Kaz Kasner, who is the head of NPTI, had been wanting to put me in the car. So I watch, what Jeff is doing, where he's braking. I know how to hit an apex,
right?
But it's knowing, okay, where to brake, listen to what gear. And next day go out and in 15, 20 laps, and like half a second off of where Brabham is, which is faster than Bob Earl or Lion Dyke had gone.
Yeah.
And that was when I became full-time Nissan.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, most people don't know about that.
So if you didn't get hooked up with that real estate guy to convince you, hey, it's not so bad living down there.
Oh, yeah.
You probably don't go to Phoenix. You probably don't end up getting that opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy how that stuff works,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. At the time, I'd been living, no lie, in a converted 1-car garage. I had the garage, this lady had put up some drywall and put in a bathroom and a microwave out in the garage, and that's how I was living.
Nice.
I was 27, 28 years old.
So especially at that age, when you're really kind of thinking about where am I going with things, what was the moment where you went, oh, you know what, I'm going to make it, in terms of this is going to be a profession for you?
Well, no, I had, it's funny because you got to go back further. I graduated college in '84, but, got right out of college, I got hired by the Gallo Wine Company. That got me out to L.A., where I'd won a scholarship for the Jim Russell School.
Okay.
Won my first championship in '84, the Jim Russell School championship. Put away $3,000. Okay, while I was working at Gallo, living really not far out from the slums of Riverside, California, but had to make a decision. Do I want to be a coat and tie guy and be a businessman, or do I want to be a race car driver? And I decided, I don't want to be 30 and look back and say, if only you had tried.
Right. Sure.
And so yeah, literally lived like in the ghettos of Riverside for another year, because at that time for Jim Russell, if you worked for free, they'd let you race.
Yeah. Mechanics training program.
Mechanics training program.
Yep.
And I lasted about two months as a mechanic before they realized he's a really crappy mechanic.
He's going to hurt somebody.
And they moved me to the front office because I was good at talking to people.
Right.
And so I'd answer phones and talk to, work in sales. And so that was that was a pretty amazing time. You spent a lot of years being poor, but they were also some of my most fun years ever, because you learn where all the happy hours are. You learn
how to make $1 last.
And you know what the funny thing, because you eat for free at happy hour. People don't know that. There was a place called the Bull and Mouth.
The Bull and Mouth?
The Bull and Mouth, 75-cent beer.
Nice.
And they had
Probably not 75 cents anymore.
Yeah, but and actually very cool. My roommate at the time was a guy named Andy Slanker. He was an engineering student.
Okay.
He went on to work for Ford, for whom he still works. He has run their NASCAR racing division, but he's the guy that invented or penned up and engineered the Lightning truck.
Okay, yeah.
And anything really high-end sports car type stuff, that was Andy Slanker.
That's pretty cool.
So it's nice that he
went his direction. You guys, both successful.
Yeah.
So you and I have a funny, at least it's funny to me, like get to know each other's story over the last 2 years since I moved to World Challenge, and there was a situation with a person that worked for the series that was accusing you of causing a pretty big incident at Long Beach, and I was
Beauvais. That was the biggest bullshit
Just in
call in
case.
history. That was the biggest bullshit call in history. How do you? Anyway. Right.
No, keep going. Keep going.
So anyway.
just the overview in case anybody didn't watch World Challenge last year. At Long Beach, I'm running like 5th or 6th, and you guys are, I think, 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
It's Beretta, me, then Estra.
Yeah.
And there'd been a wreck at the start. On the restart, first lap, I make an amazingly, it was a great move on Beretta.
That was actually a really sweet move. Yeah. He lost 2 spots in one corner. It was
Estra follows me through the corner. I go
McLaren.
into turn 8. Okay, now I know these cats are, behind me, and they're fighting. I'm leading. I can turn into that corner whenever I want. I turned in maybe 2 or 3 feet early. Okay, Estra, being a professional, is like, I see what he's doing, and I'm going to follow him through the line. Beretta, because he's a psychopath, goes barreling into Estra, who then goes barreling into me. Both Estra and I races are over. Beretta, who caused the entire thing, goes on and wins the race.
Yeah.
I get no points. Okay, but worst of all, I get the highest fine of all 3 of us.
Yeah.
All 3 of us.
Right.
And that was totally Scott Beauvais not wanting Johnny O'Connell to win another championship, or not liking Cadillac or whatever. Dude, I that was bad.
So so I'm like 5th or something.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that's possible now I think about it, because we weren't very strong there last year. But anyways, so we're like P5-ish when that incident goes on. So all I really see is like the 3 of you coming together and clouds of carbon going up, and I'm just like checking up, and I get through it, and that's it. That's my whole thing of it. And so I'm one of like 3 cars that didn't get a fine for that race, which is like
well done.
Like Petey got one, like, and he got rear-ended and got a fine. I was like, what is going on? So the next race is the following week at Barber. I get a message from the aforementioned Scott Beauvais, and he's like, hey, what was your take on the situation with these guys? And I'm like, I can't comment on that, because I'm directly going to gain from their penalties. So it's in my best interest to say
nothing.
Get rid of all of them. Get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
Give me all the points. So I said, hey, look, that's a direct problem for me to answer that, because it would then influence your decision, and that helps me. So I can't say. It's like, well, I need you to say what happened. And I was like, the way I looked at it was 90% Beretta, 10% Estra for being there, but it's because of Beretta. And Johnny got taken out. And the response was like, absolutely not. That's not what happened. I'm like, then don't ask.
Yeah.
The next day I get one of the series reps comes and finds me. He's like, hey, you got a minute? Yeah, no problem. What's up? What was your take on the whole incident at Long Beach? And I'm like, well, just us talking. It was exactly what I said to Beauvais. And he's like, yeah, that's what I thought. Because when I heard what you told Beauvais, it didn't make sense. And I'm like, what did you hear? And he's like, that you said it was 100% Johnny O'Connell's fault. And I'm like, no. And he's like, yeah, you might want to go talk to Cadillac because that's what he told them.
Yeah.
And now I'm like seeing any future chance at an opportunity if Acura runs its
Yeah.
course, completely not going to happen from anywhere somebody at Cadillac or GM could end up.
You want to hear how, you know what, again, some of the stuff that we had to deal with at that time. You know, again, talk about a pathological liar. He had, pulls us aside and is like, listen, I spoke to Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti. All right.
It was
And
Dario
they-
Franchitti, Paul Tracy, Bill
Yeah.
Oberlin, and Ryan Eversley,
Yeah,
which I was
yeah.
like, whoa. The fourth one.
So
the fourth one doesn't belong.
So, man, that was ugly. And they all agree that you were the most to blame.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And, and so, Darren Law is good friends with Paul Tracy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, I'm like, hey, Darren, call Paul. Talk to him. And Paul's response, okay, when asked, hey, did you see that Long Beach thing? Did you really blame John? And he's like, Scott Beauvais said this, and his response was, who the is Scott Beauvais? Right? Now, he didn't talk to Scott.
Right.
I mean, to Paul. He
Yeah,
didn't talk.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that was just, and I don't remember it was, yes, it was. I'm sitting on a plane after that. I forget where maybe I was flying back or whatever. And he calls me up, and he's acting like we're best buds and all that kind of stuff. And this was before I announced points and fine. And he's like, well, listen, here's the deal. You're getting a $3,000 fine. And I went ballistic. And I mean, I went psycho. Because I couldn't believe, And then he starts pulling the Dario Franchitti stuff and all that. I'm like, and there's what do? You got to pay the fine.
I want to bring up the Beretta thing because I got to witness this obviously up close and personal because of being in the series, but the fan side of me was really interested, and then like the podcast side of me was really interested. The dynamic change between you and Beretta, because at the beginning of the season we had a thing at St. Pete drivers meeting where I can't remember. Oh, they were announcing like the FIA GT3 tie-in or something.
We're going to do that race for
Italy
Rattel
and all that crap. It never really went anywhere, but
Baru or something.
Yeah,
Baku.
yeah. So up on the main stage is like series regulars, Johnny O'Connell, Beretta, like a couple others. And you and Beretta are sitting next to each other, and you tell us on the thing, obviously we're rivals on track, but we spend a lot of time when Ollie comes to town. He stays at my house and the whole 9 yards. To 8 months later, the finale at Laguna Seca, you guys are literally – he spins you for the championship, goes on to hit my teammate, breaks his car, loses the championship, and then you go on to get the win.
Yeah.
And it was like that.
There's a lot of drama.
You're literally like, that guy's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and just to set the stage, I mean, Beretta has sort of been in your world for a very long time between Corvette. You've been together for years.
And out of the car, always had a great time with him. He's a lovely guy. In the car, he's a complete psychotic madman. And, it's kind of neat because guys will remember, Mid-Ohio when we were both in Corvette. Yeah. And we're both on the pit speed limiter. I'm in front of him Mid-Ohio.
That's right.
And we're banging doors going down pit lane.
Right.
There's a marshal in front of us because pit lane is closed.
Right.
All right, and holding a red flag. Right. But I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. And we're bam, 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 bam. The official has to run and dive out of the way. Otherwise, we're going to run him over. And then Beretta gets off the pit speed button early to get in front of me. And, I mean, that was the beginning of the ugliness. And I did pass him back on the racetrack.
This is your teammate.
That's my teammate. And it was so funny because, dude, when he and I were teamed at Corvette, in 10 we were teamed for a couple of races. I have him over the house.
Yeah.
And I think, this will be fun. Let's watch Talladega Nights. He's never seen it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
and so Jean Girard is, talking, what is wrong? You don't like the jazz music? And I'm like, Olivier, you sound just like him. Like, I do. So we had fun, but it just, that was, especially what happened after Long Beach. After Long Beach, it was just,
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, if I do something like that, if I do a stupid move on Ryan, I might wait a day or two for him to chill out, but then I'm like, hey, dude, sorry I got it to you.
Yeah.
And he can be like, well, screw you, but I know that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was there ever a follow-up after the season ended? Like, hey, let's
at the
put
banquet
the past behind us?
at the banquet, they put our tables next to each other, and his team owner, I can't remember the guy's name, but
Giacomo
really,
or something?
yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, Johnny, come over, say hi. And I'm like, guys, glad it's all over. And Olivier, I love you, but stop running into me. But you got to put that stuff behind you. But yeah, no, I mean, we're blessed. You're blessed. We're racing in what has been just a great series, World Challenge. Over the 6 years that I've been there, there's been tremendous growth and interest. You go back 6-7 years, nobody paid attention to it. Now, a ton of people are paying attention to it.
Yeah.
I wish we still did the standing start, because when guys like Helio Castroneves and Will Power come up to me and are watching our races because they love the standing start aspect, I think you're making a statement. I think we've, maybe not done the greatest thing there. That was dangerous but exciting.
Thinking through the years, this may be a tough one to answer on the spot, but who's the best guy that we've never heard of?
A gifted guy that nobody, really knows or remembers is Krasnov.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was,
Tommy Kendall was a big proponent of his.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really always mentioned.
Well, yeah, just had the mentality of again, he was working out before guys were working out.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly right.
He never touched alcohol. I mean, everything he did was race.
Yeah.
And, he understood, he understood fashion. I didn't. He grew. I guess if you grow up in La Quinata, you understand fashion.
Yeah.
In Connecticut, I was like, jeans are jeans. I don't think I ever owned a pair of Jordache, and I'm proud of that. Damn it. And
for those of you listening, that was an older jean company.
Yes, exactly.
So far, I've heard AJ Foyt. I've heard Steve Millen.
A lot of
Yeah. I'm curious, what other impressions do you have up your sleeve?
Of guys?
Yeah, anybody.
Favorite guy, my hero was Phil Hill.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing to meet your hero, and they're every bit as cool as you thought they would be. And it was actually Sebring, probably a couple of years before he passed, and myself and John Morton got to spend about an hour and a half, talking to him, and to hear the stories about Ferrari at that time and his sports car career. That was, and just he was a very humble guy. He was, he recognized he was successful and all that. And, again, he still, I think all race car drivers have that self-confidence. Some become jerks. He was definitely not a jerk.
Yeah.
And you could tell he had a great love for the sport.
But impressions.
Yeah. Jackie Stewart.
How about
Jackie Stewart was
Do you do
great.
his Jackie Stewart
funny,
impression?
the dude.
Okay.
It's a great day for motor racing. The funniest thing is when we are doing that test at Thruxton, right? I'm riding around, in his car with him through the infield, right? Because we're going corner to corner, checking things out. It's Jackie Stewart, man.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I'm with Jackie Stewart, right? Well, he goes literally. He gets the car rolling in first gear, and then immediately goes second, third, fourth. Right? You're doing. Cars don't like being going 20 miles an hour in fourth gear, so the car's going. And all I can think is, change the gear, Jackie. But I didn't have the courage to say it. Jackie, what are you doing? So that was kind of fun.
Did you know Spencer Pompelli killed a guy?
You know what? That wouldn't surprise me. Did he kill him with kindness? Maybe. So no, he's a nice guy, isn't he? Or did he really kill a guy?
So there's a rumor that you tried to murder Dario Franchitti at a racetrack once.
Well, a murder's, I would call
Strong
it
word.
homicide.
Okay.
I mean, murder has that intent.
Okay.
Thing. But yeah, and I never even knew I did it. Just cruising through the paddock at Detroit. Dario was still driving at the time.
Oh, so yeah, he had to work the next day.
But he came up to me. I want to say it was at Le Mans or maybe one of the other races. He's like, you almost killed me.
So Jackie Stewart came up to you.
Yeah, Jackie Stewart. They all sound alike.
It's like they're all in the same room.
Yeah,
same
that
guy.
comes from wearing that kilt.
Do you impersonate Beretta at all?
Well, all you got to do is listen to Jean Girard.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
is
So
Beretta.
Simon Pagino is
Yes, I'd like
Olivia
to
Beretta.
meet my husband Gregory. So,
So Olivia Beretta's married to a man.
yeah.
Very good.
I'm learning a lot today.
And that man is Mos Def.
Yeah.
with kids, you have kids.
Yeah.
What drives you crazy about like pop culture and is it TV shows? Is it the crap your kids wear? Like, because your kids are both like 22 and 18
Kanan's
or
22,
something?
Kelly's 19.
19, yeah.
Just the way that certainly my daughter lives on her phone. It's so funny. She'll have, friends sleep over at the house, and you'll go into the room at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they never talk to each other. They're just on their phone.
Right.
They're on the phone all the time. It's and they don't watch TV anymore.
Right.
But you know what? I got to tell you, one of the just warmest, happiest parts of my life was when they were younger, and you watch the cartoons with them.
Sure.
And all that kind of stuff, and that was fun. And then initially you like Hannah Montana, and,
Who doesn't?
And,
Who doesn't?
I know. But then you realize, kids are rotten these days because the cheekiness of the kids on the TV shows. It's like you go back and you watch the Andy Griffith Show. There was respect for people that were older than you. Now it's you have like a cute little kid say something cheeky and disrespectful to an elder, okay, and then you insert a laugh track, and TV has trained our children pretty poor, but as far as my kids go, no, they've turned out pretty good so far.
So we have a tradition on the show that we pass along a question to the next guest. So the next guest is none other than my dad, John Eversley, who has a long history in the sport of being a mechanic, crew chief, team manager. Worked with Bob Aiken in the Coke 962, the John Paul Jr. 935s, Panos, me.
Yeah.
Went really downhill pretty fast. So any question you would want to ask him about anything, people have asked, like, what do you eat for breakfast?
Yeah.
To where did your career go right? Anything you could think of.
Well, your dad is known and accomplished and all that kind of stuff. I'd be more inclined to ask him, how much did you go out of your way to help your boy in his career?
He's going to be like, what?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Yeah. And how much, was he willing to dig into his wallet? How much did he invest? Which is what it should be. And I'll tell you, through my career, I have done a lot of the TV broadcasting and stuff for the Star Mazda stuff and other things. And I can't tell you how many parents have come up to me asking me, where should my kid be racing? And then guys, and this is no lie, guys saying, listen, I put $400,000 away from my retirement. Okay, where should I use that on my kid? Oh, and I'm no lie.
Yeah.
Wow.
No lie. And I can come up with 4 names that are in my head right now. And I've always been like, whatever you do, don't spend your own money. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it is. You know what? You can make it. You are proof. Lally's proof. There's, my teammate Michael Cooper's proof. I'm proof. You can make it, but you got to be hungrier and work harder than everybody else. And that's, it's funny because with my son, I help him out with some travel and all that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But I tell him that, right now, okay, there's 1,000 guys that want to be race car drivers. Okay. You got to, 999 of them. You've got to work hard. You got to want it more. You got to burn more fuel. You got to do whatever it takes. Tony Kanaan spent a lot of time sweeping garages when he came to the States. Yeah. And you got to be willing to have that just ridiculous amount of hunger. And it's kind of cool for me now with Kanan because he's figured it out.
How much longer are you going to be doing this?
Oh, boy. You know what? I still have a few things I want to do. Le Mans.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been on the podium there 9 times, won it 4. The only thing I don't have for an American there, I have the most in the history of the world. This one I'm kind of proud of. I have the most consecutive finishes at Le Mans at 10. So even Christensen doesn't have that.
Really?
But there was a driver. I have the most starts for any American. But Maston Gregory had 16 appearances. So I want to get that one next year. And I'd like to get it on that podium and get another win there again. To answer your question, I still feel good.
Yeah.
I still, I think, I'd like to think that guys, when they race me, can look at me and say that's one of the better guys that this country's ever produced.
For sure.
And the fact that I can still win races, against guys like yourself, Perrant, Patrick Long, top guys, I'm like, there's no reason to leave.
Right.
Especially if I like it. So to answer your question, if I could go another 3-5 years, in my ideal, fantasy world, I run another 3 so odd years, and then my kid replaces me.
There you go.
You ran with Lally in the GTO?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was good. You know what? I forget. I think we finished second that year. I want to say. And Andy, I think Andy had a little bit of difficulty working with me initially in that.
There was a TV show about it.
Huh?
There was a TV show about it.
Yeah. And because there was a TV show about that, and that might be why Andy was the way he was, because I was the big GM factory guy.
How was he?
What?
How was Andy?
Non-compromising at that stage in his
Really?
career.
Yeah.
I think he would have benefited from listening to me maybe a little bit more.
No, I think
That sounds about right.
That sounds like him now.
And again, one guy doesn't win Daytona, one guy doesn't win Sebring, one guy doesn't win Le Mans. It's everybody working together.
So it's a loaded question about the TV show because Sean, I don't know, what produced it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys had an interview that Sean was reluctant to mention.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What did I say? You didn't say it, man. I don't,
Oh, no, you were a pain in the ass.
Huh? Was
You were
I?
a pain in yeah. No,
Okay.
this isn't on the air.
Yeah.
But,
No, you can put this on there.
It's on the air.
Okay.
Like, what are you talking about?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
on the
yeah,
air.
No. Our very first interaction was it was my show.
Yeah,
I sold it. We had a show that we did with TRG.
Yeah.
Where we're documenting the whole thing, and I don't think you even came to the test. I think you
Yeah.
just came for the race.
Yeah.
And my assumption is no one told you about us.
Oh, no.
So you walked in to. And the Pontiac TRG relationship wasn't exactly ideal at that
Yeah.
point. And so you walk in, and there's all these film crew guys walking around.
Yeah.
And every time you would see a little boom mic, you just be like,
Oh, yeah,
just to make
that's
sure you weren't in
me.
the shot. Yeah.
That's totally me. That's totally me. Yeah.
So
yeah.
the thing is, you and I had, because
Yeah.
most of my guys,
Yeah.
especially the producers I had with me, they by design weren't racers.
Yeah.
So they would ask you the most generic question. You're like,
Yeah.
holes, you know?
Yeah.
And
Do you like racing?
Yeah.
how fast are you going? You know, it was all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody would come up to me like that Johnny O'Connell guy. He's just such a and,
Yeah.
and we didn't know each other. I'm like, but no,
Yeah.
everybody says he's really nice. I have a hard time
Yeah.
buying this. And then I
Yeah.
watched the footage.
Well, but if I was on the other
Yeah.
end, and somebody, every time like the camera's on him goes, I would be pissed off as well. But that's part of the fun.
No,
You know what?
I get it.
Because you get again. We do this because we love it, because it's fun.
Right.
And then stuff like that. Please let them know he's actually a decent guy, and he's just having fun
Heckman fired
they're all
I
gone.
know, in a jerky sort of way. But I had a buddy once tell me, if everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong. So
I agree.
I guess
No,
yeah.
Oh, I'm
wholeheartedly agree.
doing a great job.
According to my crew.
So that's two people now that you've called an asshole
Yeah,
on the
that
show.
is true.
You also called Bob
I
Barsha
did.
an
Yeah.
asshole.
I did
Yeah.
call him. He is an asshole. He's not.
He's the nicest guy.
I mean,
We debated. I was like, I don't know if we want to put that story on the spot because I don't know if Johnny be defensive about it, but it sounds like you were like, But then to Sean's credit, he said that when you finally
because
interviewed him,
we didn't actually, because I was with Buckler and
Yeah.
Lowley and Valentine, off road and away from the track.
Jay.
So they all knew me and they were comfortable and
Yeah.
they knew my
Yeah.
understanding of racing. But,
Yeah.
but you were dealing with my field producers who were asking you nothing but generic stuff and
Well-
I believe one guy was like, "Was there any drama?" That's
Yeah.
never the thing you ask.
Oh,
a
I know.
guy.
No.
So, but when you and I interfaced, I noticed you changed a lot,
Yeah.
and you were actually apologetic
Yeah.
because I think it was the first time you talked with somebody on our crew that knew what he was
that
watching.
knew something.
Yeah,
Well, and the other
so-
thing is, I didn't do Daytona for the paycheck.
right,
I went there to win.
right,
All right.
Right.
And so I just didn't know that, there's a distraction here.
Yeah.
There's, you got guys acting.
Right.
And I'm like, let's win a race.
Yeah.
But my apologies if I,
I don't care. That was funny.
Again, it's like,
he's been
I've
told.
been-
yeah, I know.
or whatever.
It's like the guy.
Dario
that
and
became
we
my-
got Dario in the
yeah,
back,
yeah.
and we're ready.
Dario and Sean are going to jump Johnny O'Connell and
I
get
know.
the kicked out of him. He actually did kill 2 people. Sean
right.
Heckman and Dario Franchitti.
That's like the movie Anchorman. I killed the guy with a trident.
You might want to lay low for a while. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm good.
Beautiful.
I'd say Continental's got the check.
I'm finished.
Wow, that was such a great episode. That guest really knew how to tell a story.
Did you like that, Johnny O'Connell, Ryan? Good. I'm glad that you're sitting here right next to me as we edit.
You're welcome, Sean. I'm right here.
All right. Huge shout out to Johnny O'Connell. Glad we could bury the hatchet from all those years of anger and torment. But anyway, we'll go ahead and close out this first episode of season 2. And just like we did last season, we're going to close out with trying to bring some attention to some music that maybe you're not as familiar with. So those who paid attention on social media may have seen we've put out a few kind of open calls for people to submit songs. And you'll see throughout season 2, we'll have a little bit of mix of people that we've never met who submitted stuff. And we'll also mix in some of our old friends and just sort of a good combination of the two. But the first one is actually somebody who we've never met who kind of responded to our open casting. His name is Billy Hamill. And he's with a band called Rex, W-R-E-C-K-S. You can find them on Bandcamp. It looks like they're still kind of putting some demos together, but they had one song that I kind of just felt like it fit Johnny pretty well. It's called 4 Shots, and I'll waste your time no longer. Thanks for listening. Enjoy.